up-to-date investigative true crime channel. Here we speak on the education, the understanding of the crime, and deep diving into the mind of the afflicted. Justice for the victims by giving the silent a voice. Hope you enjoy.
In a world where shadows speak and silence kills, we chase the truth through blood-soaked hills. Crime scenes cold, but the trail stays hot. Every clue a whisper, every detail caught. Killers lurking, predators hide, but justice walks with us side by side. We don't flinch, we don't fold, we bring the dark stories that must be told. 12 gauge, a gas toy, built to last. Through the lies, the screams, the shattered glass. While cynics scoff and doubters run, we bring the dark stories that must be told. 12 gauge, I can built to last. Through the lies, the screams, the shattered glass. While cynics scoff and doubters run, we seek the truth till the work is done. We dig deep in the minds of the cruel, expose every motive, every tool. From courtroom drama to midnight trails, the guilty sweat when the facts unveil. 12 gauge, the line is drawn. For the victims lost and the voices gone. Crime killers, the scars they leave. We bring the truth, we don't deceive. Where justice is sought and silence is the enemy. This is 12 gauge Efterkin. Welcome to the hunt.
All right. How's everybody doing on this Friday night? How's everybody doing? Let me know in the chat. I see there's quite a few of you in the chat already, so let me know what's up. Are y'all ready to do this? I think I'm ready. I got some meatloaf cooking in the oven, but you know, by the time I'll eat it, it'll probably be having to be reheated again. But I wanted to get this live done. And I got some mixed vegetables here next to me. Would you look at that? Your boy figured out a way to bring up the document so everybody could see that I was reading these bad boys. I think I like that one better because y'all can actually, let me bring it over a little bit. That way I don't take up so much of the chat over there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Once again, my name is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I decided to continue reading these because I was hearing some stuff along the way, just like I do all the time. I'm not preoccupied with this. I really am not. But once I start something, I like to finish it and at least give an understanding that I gave my best at whatever I was trying to do. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Well, let's go ahead and start with this one. And I have the ability to bring it even bigger, so I tried to make it a black reader, but it wouldn't let me. This is incident number 22MO9903, John Lawrence. I think we took we left off at this one, so we'll be doing this one right now. Okay? Y'all having a good Friday? I hope you are, because, if you're not, why aren't you? What's stopping you? Right? What's stopping you from having a good Friday? Been a while, JB. How you been? Hey, Chloe. Hey, Walt. Hey, Firefly. How you doing? Um, Aquarius, I see you up there. And anybody else who's not in the chat, come on in. You're more than welcome to be here. It says on 11/13/2022, at about 1200 hours, Captain Barrett called me and informed me there had been multiple victims of a homicide located in a residence on King Road and requested all available detectives. I called Detective Vargas and was informed she was out of town and would be back in Moscow on Monday morning. I called Detective Mowry and he informed me that he would be on his way shortly. I called ISP Lieutenant Mike Mooney and told him I needed assistance from the ISP detectives in processing the crime scene. Lieutenant Mooney put me in contact with Sergeant Gilbertson. I briefed Sergeant Gilbertson on what I knew, and he told me he would start to assemble the team. So, those of you that have been following this case, hey Rondi, those of you that have been following this case, understand that there's processes to go along with an investigation. It just doesn't start up from the moment you walk. I mean, the moment you walk through the door, obviously you're looking for evidence included, but those officers are not the ones that are ultimately the detectives on the case. So this is telling you that they started assembling the team. I responded to the scene where I met with Sergeant Gunderson. Sergeant Gunderson informed me that the officers were dispatched to an unconscious person at 1122 King Road, and that is when they found 4 deceased college-age people in the residence. I told Sergeant Gunderson I needed someone from his team to return to the police department and start writing an affidavit for a search warrant. I did go over this the other day. Sergeant Gunderson asked Officer Nunez to handle the task. And as I said the other day, the probable cause affidavit is imperative, and it starts being written from the very beginning. And then the search warrants are ultimately done as the affidavit is being processed with the information on the scene. So after the affidavit was asked to be started to be written, it goes along and tells you he did a very brief, he started his walk through the residence. I entered the residence from the entrance on the north side of the building. Sorry, guys, I couldn't resist that. That green bean looked too good laying over there. I wanted to say this the other night, and I wasn't thinking about it. People do realize that what I'm reading right now, what other people have been reading, what other people have been commenting on, you do realize that all this stuff that you're reading, it is not how the court case would have been discussed. You do understand that all this information that's on these sheets of paper would not have been how the court case would have been discussed. The prosecutor would not have been reading these documents in the court in the trial. He would have condensed all the information into a story form to be able to share with the jury exactly what was the most important evidentiary areas of this case. So to sit here and act like every one of these documents is a potential clue as to what may have been missed by an agency, it kind of shows your ignorance in that retrospect if that's what you believe. But I don't believe that anybody's ignorant when it comes to being here because you've shown me otherwise. You know what I mean? I just am saying this for anyone that has that presumption that these documents, as they're being read, would have been discussed in court like that. Clarify it if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe that I'm pretty right on point. Um, so I just wanted to throw that out there because as I'm reading this stuff, I was thinking the other day, we know there's a lot of this that would have not even been mentioned in the trial. They wouldn't have mentioned a lot of this. And there's more document that I've read further up because I wanted to see exactly what the hell was going on with all these things. And I got to thinking, I was like, people are assuming that every one of these documents, the jury would have heard all this information, and they wouldn't have if it wasn't relevant with an attachment to evidence asked for in the search warrants. So most of the stuff that you would have heard about in this case is not even relevant. All this stuff that I'm reading, it's good for lives and it's good for discussion. But as far as you would have heard about it in the trial, probably not. You wouldn't have heard hardly any of this stuff. I then did a very brief walkthrough on the residence. I entered the residence from the entrance on the north side of the building. Officer Warner, who was securing the scene, logged my entrance into the residence. I then went up the stairs and located the deceased female on the floor, male on the bed, and located two deceased females in the southeast bedroom. They were both in the bed. I spoke with the Officer Smith, who was securing the residence at the south entrance for a moment. Then I exited the residence to the north entrance. Officer Warner noted my departure. So, as I did the other day, I'm going to highlight this. And I know that you can't see it terribly well, but if you were going to be writing this into your presentation in the trial, what part of this would you put into your directive to the jury? What would you pluck from this paragraph that's relevant to the case that would show that you found supporting evidence after the fact based on your search warrants? What would you pluck out of this? Let me read it again, okay? That way, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I then did a very brief walkthrough of the residence. I entered the residence from the entrance on the north side of the building. Officer Warner, who was securing the scene, logged my entrance into the residence. I then went up to the stairs and located the deceased female on the floor and the male in the bed in the west bedroom on the second floor. I climbed the stairs to the third floor and located two deceased females in the southeast bedroom. They were both in bed. I spoke with the Officer Smith, who was securing the residence at the south entrance for a moment. Then I exited the residence through the north entrance. Officer Warner noted my departure. So what part of that paragraph is relevant had it been presented in court? Tell me in the chat, please. Because if you're not going to type it, I'll tell you, but I'm going to wait for the delay to give you guys a chance because this ended up in the PCA. So you should know exactly what I'm talking about. It was rewritten in a way that was not paraphrased by this officer. And that's another thing. You can't put something verbatim that you did not do. You're plagiarizing at that point. You're taking credit for somebody else's work. It's kind of like the copyright on YouTube. You can't take the credit that somebody else did. without altering it minutely to mean or say something in a different paragraph structure. Officer John Lawrence wrote this. So I'm going to tell you so I can go on. The part that made it into the PCA and also would have made it into court, I'm pretty sure, it's the understanding of when the officer walked up the stairs. It says, once he walked in the building, he went up to the stairs and located the deceased female on the floor and the male on the bed in the west bedroom on the second floor. I climbed the stairs to the third floor and located two deceased females in the southeast bedroom. They were both in bed. That's it. That's all that would have probably made it into the trial, had there been a trial, into the narrative that he would have wanted to present to the jury, stating the fact that the officers entered the residence initially to find an unconscious, to see what was going on with the unconscious female, and after the fact ran into what I just highlighted. So this could have possibly made it into the trial, not as evidence, but just as what was found on the initial briefing of the officers entering 1122. Does that make sense? And it continues on. I called Sergeant Gilbertson and informed him of the additional information provided to me and what I had seen. I told him MPD would be needing their assistance. Also told Sergeant Gilbertson MPD had an officer writing an affidavit for a search warrant. I returned to the police department where I met with Sergeant Blaker and Corporal Payne, whom I had called earlier and requested they respond to the PD. At this time, Detective Mowry was at the police department. I requested they interview the other occupants of the residence where the deceased were located. There were also several friends of the deceased who had been with the deceased the night before and may have had information of their whereabouts and who they were with prior to the murders. So think about what I just said about finding those deceased individuals. There's a cause, there's a fact, and then there's search. So that's how the puzzle pieces work. You just don't go from one to final, as many people on YouTube do when they're presenting these things. They're presenting their opinion, as I've said multiple times. This isn't an opinion type document. It's a step-by-step document written by licensed officers who at the bottom, all of them put their credentials and who reviewed their document. I think I read this one yesterday, or the last time that I read, so I'm not going to go ahead and read this one. I'm going to go ahead and grab the other one after this. There went my meatloaf just went off. Hey, Leslie, how you doing? We're getting to number 8. Is what I'm saying making sense to you guys? Because there's a lot of individuals that are reading these things and have no clue what they're talking about. And they're spreading their own opinions, just like always, to the masses and confusing people even more because they follow up, in my opinion. Or they follow up, this is bullshit, or this doesn't make sense, or whatever they might say. If it doesn't make sense to you and you think it's bullshit, that means you don't know what you're talking about. Because this is written in the perspective of the officer at the top right here. And it says sequence number 8. So this is the sequence of the follow-up supplemental narrative of what these officers saw. This is number 8. So they go in sequence, noting the fact that all these things that I am talking about follow in suit as to what was investigated, what was seen, what interviews were done, things of that nature. So this one is John Rosinski, 11/14/22. As you notice, there are no feeling words in these documents, right? So if these officers don't put feeling words, that should tell you that there is no emotional attachment when you're writing this. So as you're reading it, there should be no emotional attachment when you're reading it. Because if you're really looking for the truth, as many people say, if you're really looking for answers, as many people say, which is hypocritical by so many that I've heard discussing these, because they've slammed every document written, but yet at the same time they're using the same document they're slamming as defamatory. I mean, not defamatory, but as I don't want to cuss or use any of the words that they use, but saying that the documents are not the documents are unreliable. So you're saying something's unreliable, but you're using the same document to try to find clarity and evidence that you're hoping to find that nobody saw in the document that you claim is unreliable by the agency that wrote it. Tell me how that makes sense. How does that make sense? It's kind of like a lot of times you hear individuals bashing mainstream media, right? And I know you've heard it. They bash Banfield, they bash Coffin Dapper, they bash Brian Enton, they bash all of them. But at the same time, they're using their material when they're trying to explain something or to show you that it's wrong. That would be like me having emotional attachment to the document that has no feeling words and adding feeling behind every sentence that's said. It's kind of like this. Let me give you an example. On 11/13/2022, I received a phone call advising me there was a quadruple homicide at 1122 King Road. I arrived at the Moscow Police Department, put on my police-issued uniform, I read this one too, and relieved Officer Warner at the above address, who was currently holding scene security and maintaining a log of who came in and out of the apartment at the front door, which is the north side of the apartment. I was on the scene for about 2 hours until I was relieved by Officer Morris, who took over my duties. Let me give you an example. One, those 2 hours, what were they doing? Were they going through the crime scene? Were they planning stuff? Who was in charge? Who was making sure that these officers were doing what they were supposed to do? Who was regulating them? See, it doesn't make sense, everyone. This is unacceptable. This is police corruption at its finest. You can just see right there in that paragraph. He said there was a period of time in which there was nobody accounted for other than this officer seeing who came in and out. But how can we trust that he wrote down the right names of the people that came in and out? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You can't ever show me that this was written in good faith. But I'm here to show you that I'm going to be the one that breaks the corruption of this small town Idaho Police Department and their Keystone Cops. Does that sound familiar to anybody? To the yelling and everything else? Of course it does. I'm going to go ahead and drop this one because I did that one too. Let me go ahead and do another one. I think we're at 9 or 10. But I did quite a few the other night. So if you're really looking for justice, or you're looking for things that are going to show your audience that maybe there was some corruption, maybe there was some um, negligence on the police's part, you're doing what the defense does most of the time. They try to discredit the officer, they try to discredit the experts. That's their job. But how many people that are giving this discreditation have law degrees on these panels? I know there are a lot of lawyers that do have law degrees. They have passed the bar, they know the case law, they know all this stuff. But I know damn well that there's a lot of people that don't have law degrees who sit around their home yelling at the mic. You get what I'm saying? Oh, hey, Walt. You sound like certain people. Wow. They're in their chat, though. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're sure does. Oh, and some other homophobic slurs. Great, dude. Walt, you're welcome. God is sick now. I'm sick of this stupid madness. Yeah. But I'm not talking about them. I'm giving you examples, and I'm giving other people who could be watching that I have nothing against these people, but their credibility is just as uncredible as they speak. Other people don't have the credentials or the education, doesn't equal knowledge. You get what I'm saying? It does equal knowledge, because when you're doing your job, you're not emotionally attached to it. You're doing it based on your training and understanding of the law and understanding of the process, of the limitation that you could possibly go. Because I remember hearing very early on, they should just round them up and make them talk. We need to know answers. Tell us all what we need to know. You can't do that. And these are the same people that say the cops are trying to violate our rights, but at the same time, they're yelling into the mic talking about you should just grab all these people and interrogate them and make them talk. You can't interrogate somebody unless they're a suspect. You know what I'm saying? But your job is not catching criminals, is it, Leslie? So you can be emotionally attached to your job, but being a YouTube creator is not a job unless you paid the dues and went up the ladder and actually have some education behind what you say. I hear people say all the time they add a new title to their name every time they talk. I used to be this, I used to be that, I used to do this, I used to do that, with no receipt behind what they say. Well, I could say I used to protect the President of the United States and be in the Secret Service, and I also worked with um, the governor's nephew and blah, blah, blah. And if you believe all that, should you blanketly believe all that? No, you shouldn't. You get what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense, because I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm just merely stating the facts, because facts don't need to be proven to people streaming on YouTube. You would think that you would know about these factual things before you actually spoke on them. Because for every person that yelled about misinformation and getting on these platforms and talking garbage and all this stuff, what information do you really have other than the same document that I'm reading? What is in this document that you read that is more profound than what I'm reading? Answer me that question. You get what I'm saying? But I'm not trying to start crap. I'm just saying, logically speaking, this is how a thinking person asks those questions. They don't get on here and demand that their narrative be the only one to be listened to and try to hop other people on board who are just as insane as they are. Oh, I agree. I agree. Chloe, I agree with you. This is number 9. This is from Aaron Morris. Scene security number 172. Additional responding officers, none. Case number added, not applicable. Evidence, not applicable. I'm not saying that you can't be teaching yourself certain things. I'm not saying that people can't be knowledgeable based on experience that they put forth in front of learning things, okay? I'm talking about individuals that claim to be doing so much research, but how can they be doing research if you see them live more than they're not on camera? Because they're not doing research while they're on camera. They're doing exactly what I'm doing, speaking on this. So that is not research. Research is not showing a video and reacting to it. If you're a so-called creator, it isn't. Maybe they don't understand the names. They don't understand English language. Maybe they want to put themselves, it's kind of like my title of my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative, meaning that by investigative, I put in there the educational portion of this, meaning that I tried to educate people in the investigative process rather than my own personal opinion of what happens in these cases. And I've said that from the very beginning. And people have always asked me, "What 12? What's your take on it? What do you believe happened?" And blah blah blah. I finally told people, toward the end, but like I said I would. But I've also stuck to my belief from the very beginning, which never wavered. If you are truly knowledgeable and very proficient on what you do, people are either going to believe you or they're not. They will follow your narrative or they won't. But one thing for sure, the more that you try to brainwash people, eventually they're going to see through your ceiling of glass and it's going to come crumbling down by your doing. And that's to anybody who does this. I've seen it happen. All I know is that Brian is guilty now. He was guilty last week and will be guilty next month. Next year, facts don't change. That is so true. But the appeal. Yeah, what about the appeal? Because everything that you need to know is in the document. I'm just going to spare you from certain things because I believe that you, as my audience, are too fragile to hear that somebody got clubbed in the face and got their teeth knocked out. Oh my God, trigger warning. Trigger warning. My bad. I forgot to flash the little trigger warning and everything else that you are too sensitive to hear. But I'm the only master of presentation that can understand what I'm reading. And if I don't tell you everything, isn't that like what they accused the police officers are doing? Isn't that what Moscow PD had been accused by these individuals? Well, Moscow PD hid everything from us. They didn't tell us nothing. And we demand to know. Okay. But you can pick and choose when you're reading these documents to your audience, to your subs in your chat, what you want to pick and choose, what you think is relative to their sensitive hearts. Isn't that a little bit hypocritical? What do you think, Chad? Do you think it's hypocritical to assume that your chat is too weak to hear certain things and at the same time be accusing a police department of doing the same thing that you do to your chat? In the words of somebody else, whoever said this from the beginning, make it make sense. You get what I'm saying? Hypocrisy at its finest. Hypocrisy at its finest. Let me go on with the documents. It said on 11/14/22 at approximately 1100 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road. In regard to the follow-up, I took note of who came and went from the scene. ISP detectives as well as Sergeant Blaker, Detective Vargas, and prosecuting attorneys entered the residence. Redacted. Let me turn my phone off because these people are relentless. I've opted out to their calling list and they're relentless. Redacted arrived shortly after with her cadaver dogs to attempt and locate a blood trail from the resident. So why would she be looking outside for a blood trail? Why wouldn't she be looking in the residence for a blood trail? Wouldn't you be looking where the crime went on instead of where it wasn't? No, dumbass. The killer exited through the slider, so the cadaver dog was looking for a blood trail outside the residence, leading to a vehicle, because the suspect left the residence in a vehicle. So the cadaver dog was looking for a blood trail. ISP entered the residence at 11:25 hours. Detective Vargas entered at 11:26 and left at 12:26. Sergeant Blaker entered at 11:27, exited at 11:49. I've read this one too. Prosecuting attorney Ashley Jennings and William Thompson entered the 11:30 hours and left at 11:53. Blah blah blah. PA Jennings re-entered at 12. Sergeant Blaker re-entered at 1200 hours with Detective Vargas. Redacted arrived with her canine at 13:16 hours. They all remained in the area until 14:21. Another thing I don't approve of is these people's names are redacted. And I know I did it the other day, and I felt stupid after doing it. Those names are redacted for a reason. Because they don't want the whole world to know who that person is. To not be judged, discriminated, death threats, all the stuff that happened to these people that are known about. There's a reason they're redacted. But these creators or reaction people or just loudmouth YouTubers, whatever you want to call them, they find it in their best interest to tell the world everybody's name, everybody's social history, how they fit into the puzzle in their eyes, and they could be seen later on, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. I mean, you hear one, you hear them all, because they all have the same narrative. They all have the same narrative. This person will be later on, you will see exactly how they fit into all this. No, we won't. Because If they were such a suspect, they would be in custody. They would be in custody. Not walking the streets of Moscow or wherever they are at this point because they were cleared. Once again, there is no emotional attachment to suspects. I've seen judges' kids be locked up. I've seen them go to prison for DWIs. I've seen, cops be arrested for breaking the law. I've seen all kinds of individuals in high places break the law, their kids break the law, and they still get arrested. So that narrative that people get special treatment in small towns, it may happen, but more often than not, it doesn't. Because the smaller the area, the more people are going to know that these individuals are getting special prevalence, and they're going to vote you out. You're not going to have a job. The numbers keep dropping because I guess whoever lurks doesn't like what I'm saying because they take it as a personal attack. Well, once again, if it don't apply, let it fly. Let it fly. But it does apply to a lot of people. That's why they get all up in their feelings. That's why they get so angry and call names and threaten and dictate that they are this and that. But they're nothing more than just somebody just like me sitting in front of a camera talking to an audience about a crime that's already been solved. A crime where the suspect was arrested and pled out, and now is in prison. You get what I'm saying? What do y'all think, chat? Do you think I'm on point tonight, or do you think I'm far off? Because I'm really not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm really not. I'm not doing that whatsoever. But you know what? You call a spade a spade. You know what I mean? You see it, you got to call it for what it is. I don't choose to make excuses for people that continuously put themselves in the forefront as the leader, the voice of true crime, when all they do is just stir up nothing of relevance but dust. That's all they do. They stir up dust. They never bring any kind of closure to their investigation. Their investigation goes for hell. Some of these investigators, as they call themselves, are still investigating this case, and the professionals cleared it in what, 6 weeks? So if their investigation was so good, they would have cleared this in 3 weeks or a month or 5 weeks. They still wouldn't be talking about it as if the case was flawed. Like you've heard me say, there are some mistakes that are potentially done by everybody because none of us are perfect. But to say that 3 agencies were compromised by a university, who the only reason they were in the mix was to cover up a murder. If these people really want to do something, they should use their time to write a crime book. Because nonfiction would sell. They really would. They should write a book and then sell it. Read it on their platforms. Use it for good. Instead of trying to use it to actually make reality your fiction. You get what I'm saying? It's like, come on now. At a particular point, you have to concede and say, look, the document that I'm reading tonight, you're reading at the same time. But in yours, there's a highlighted date here. There's arrows pointing at it. There's circling. There's all kinds of kindergarten scratches all over the page, and you're yelling at the mic trying to tell me that you're wrong and I'm right. I hope that got y'all's attention. I'm on one tonight. I'm sorry. On November 12th, 2022, at about 2100 hours, I began an overtime shift for a plainclothes detail on the University of Idaho campus and related areas. This patrol was for minors in possession, consumption of alcohol, along with other alcohol or drug offenses. So, in case you need to be told what this means, this person was working an overtime shift for plainclothes detail on the campus of Idaho and the related areas, and they were looking for minors in possession or consumption of alcohol along with other alcohol or drug offenses. So even without going any further, this is probably going to be the Banfield stuff because we haven't heard of any other alcohol or drug offenses. And give it up already with the drug angle. Was this a drug house? No, was it a drug house? Stop saying it was a drug house. Was it a drug house? You know, the parents came out and said it. It was in the documents. It's been in the docu-series from people closer to these people than anybody on these platforms stated they were not drug sellers. But since you're incapable of going from thought to thought and you just get stuck on one thing, you hear drug house and we're still talking about the drug house. It must have been the cartel that did this. See, they talked about a cartel member. See, we were right. So is it more about you being right for what you said for these 2.5 years? Or the fact that you don't want to be looked like an idiot for these 2.5 years? So you're still trying to dissect these documents to show your subs and whoever follows you that you kind of knew what you were talking about, which you're still failing miserably because you haven't changed your perspective one bit. You're still spitting the same crap. And we're getting recycled individuals on these platforms. I heard today that Dot made an appearance. Dot. Y'all remember Dot? You know, Dot made an appearance. That that's interesting to me. This said during this patrol, I and other officers with me, Officer Rosendahl, only had our body worn cameras. We were operating out of the Moscow Police Department Ford Fusion, which I drove throughout the entire detail. So this individual, if you're saying that he was the one driving around 1122 King Road, this is the one you would be going after. Because he admits in this document that he drove the vehicle the whole time. This particular department vehicle did not have a dash camera or any other recording device. My street time conducting the plainclothes detail concluded at 3:52 on November 13th. Oh dear God, 8 minutes before the murder started. He was the one that did it. He was the one that did it. We solved it right there, guys. We solved it. He was the one that did it. Because his shift ended at 3:52, so that would have given him perfect time to cruise around in a police cruiser, change out of his police attire because they were plain clothes, so he was possibly wearing all black. Well, how tall is this individual? Does he have bushy eyebrows? And in fact, if that was a police issued vehicle, don't you think the police would know on camera? Hey, that's our Fusion right there taking off at a high rate of speed. Huh. What's our Fusion doing taking off at a high rate of speed? Do we have somebody in the force that is doing illegal things? Let's cover up for it. I'm game. We got to protect the university at all costs. During this detail, Officer Rosendahl and I made several patrols through the area of King Street and Queen Road. During each patrol of this area, we traveled on the north side of the 500 Queen Road, heading east. We wrapped around the building, heading south on the east side, then west on the south side of the complex. We then traveled north on the west side, turned west onto Queen Road to proceed to King Street. So they did go around the residence. Oh, the plot thickens. During one of the patrols in this area, while approaching the southeast corner of 500 Queen Road, I recall seeing a darker colored vehicle with taillights on. This vehicle was parked facing south, on the south side of the parking lot, toward the west end. There was a short section of the parking lot which extended to the west of 500 Queen Road, south of 1122 King Street, which was where the vehicle was. Damn it, there's the vehicle right there. See how we shifted from the cop doing it to the vehicle, the black vehicle doing it? See how we shift really quickly? It was the cops, and then now it's the dark colored vehicle. Well, Brian didn't drive a dark colored vehicle. No, we know that. Each time we patrolled this area, I drove the same route. During the final patrol, which to the best of my recollection was between 2 and 3, so they weren't around that area between 4 and 5, so you're shit out of luck on that one. On November 13, 2022, as we traveled north on the west side of the apartment complex, I saw several individuals approaching the residence at 1122 King Street. During this detail, I was looking for alcoholic beverages, open containers, and individuals who appeared to be intoxicated. So that's what they were out doing that night. Because that's what we saw on camera, right? They had their body cams on. If it's not on a body cam, you can't prove to me that happened. Okay. That hurts my throat when I do that. Haven't smoked enough, I guess, in my lifetime. No offense to any smokers, either past, present, or future. I observed the individuals that I drove past, but did not see any reason to contact them for our related patrol. I recall my view of the individuals being obstructed by vehicles and brush on the east side of the parking lot for 1122 King Street, the corner of the lot. As I turned onto Queen Road and traveled west, I continued to view the individuals. From my recollection, there were at least 2 individuals, possibly 3. I recall one of the individuals having blonde hair. I do not recall exactly how many individuals there were, what they were wearing, or any other details as I quickly looked for beverages in their hands and whether they were staggering for intoxication. See, they were profiling these kids. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either you're pro the kids, the victims, or you're anti the kids. You can't call them a slut in one breath and a target the next. It doesn't work that way. Once again, hypocrisy at its finest. You can flip flop if you want, but please do understand the wording that I'm using, because you can't call them a saint one day and call them a piece of shit the next. And people do this. They've done it all around the YouTube streets. But then they want to be taken seriously and swear up and down that other people are out to get them, or that people are harsh to them when they go into their chats or whatever. Nobody's harsh to you. You make up every little lie you tell. And this is all the creators that lie. You figure out who is the liar. Not my job. But there's plenty of them. They lie about health issues. They lie about needing this or needing that. Because you know what that generates? That generates money. And this is their job. This is their career. They're investigators on YouTube. They're journalists. They're reporters. They're this, they're that. Okay. But some of us are just trying to tell the story, trying to get the voice for the voiceless. I've never once called any of those victims a prostitute, innuendos, any of that. I've never even talked about the OnlyFans except right now. I've never even talked about their looks, about how they look good or how they don't look good or how I would rate them or this or that and the other. Never done any of that. But yet, in the same breath that you're trying to get justice for these victims, you're objectifying these women as a piece of meat and as having nefarious means to their finances. Do you not remember that all of them had a job? Maddie had a job. Kelly had a job. Xana had a job. The only two that I don't remember having a job were Dylan and Bethany. Hence, why Dylan was probably looking at Indeed. Because her dad was probably, hey, you got to help a brother out. You know what I mean? It's getting kind of expensive over there. Ethan, I don't remember if he had a job or not. But they all had jobs. They worked. And their families had financial security. So automatically, somebody dresses a certain way, you call them this. Well, I could do that to the people that are objectifying these people. So you sit in a chair all day with a shirt that is bigger than you because you're already a big person, and it looks like you never bathe. All you do is run water through your hair most of the time. You obviously don't use any kind of products to enhance your skin tone or your structure. So that would tell me that you're a slob. I would assume that you're a slob, that you're hygiene deficient, that you're just lazy. Would that not be what you do to these people who you just know through a photo, through a video, through what other people have said about them? They all could have been prostitutes. But at the end of the story, they died at the hands of a killer. Who in these documents, these police are trying to show you within the first months of investigation, because that's what these forms are. These are not 2025 investigations. These are 2022 investigative forms. You defend a killer if you want. You call him a saint. You can say he's innocent. People set him up. Oh, whatever the hell you want to say. But you have to look at your own mirror first. Because just because you say that you're a certain type of person or that you act a certain type of way, those of us who are really educated see through your bullshit. And yeah, that's a word that a lot of these creators like to use. Bullshit. We see through it. You know why? Because we've seen multitudes of people just like you spitting the same game. Yeah, he did plead guilty. Since we made several patrols through the area, I cannot say with 100% confidence I saw the vehicle on the same path as I saw the individuals. Upon review of the radio history, I contacted 3 individuals at Taylor Avenue at about 2:55 hours, so that would be 2:55 in the morning. To the best of my recollection, this was after exiting King Street after seeing the individuals at 1122 King Street. We cleared this contact at 3:32 hours. way before the murders, way before Brian left his house. And that is not my opinion. That has been proven in these documents that we all are prevalent to see at this point. So I'm not going to say in my opinion. I'm going to say it with conviction because you know what? Later on, if I'm wrong, I'm man enough to stand up and say, I was wrong. Now what? Let's move on. Because you know what? People flock around liars all day long who will never admit that they were wrong, that they made a mistake, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Instead, they demean, they bully, they do all this other stuff to try to get their narrative to stay floating. And that's all it is. It's just a narrative that one day 3 people from the nursing home would tune in to listen to, or 5 people would tune in from wherever all these others do. You know one thing, and I echo this sentiment too, because I'm not just talking about one creator. There's multitudes of them that are just like this. There's another genre on YouTube, and I don't even know how I got intervened into that, intertwined. But there's a lady named Brittany J. And these people go after that woman every single day. I see somebody all day long going after that woman. And probably for good reason. Because they're tired of her shit. If she really is indeed the person they claim she is, which I can make no speculation of for or against. But as far as the true crime genre, I can speak on it because I've been in a lot of people's lives. I've been in a lot of people's uploads. I've watched a lot of people. Just because I don't chat doesn't mean that I don't watch. And I can tell you can tell a liar when their words do not match their actions. When I'm telling you every other week and forgetting what I've said to you, and I constantly reinvent myself, then that should tell you. That should tell you that, oh, last week I was a fireman. Last week I was a pizza delivery guy. Last week, oh, I did this once in my lifetime. I'm related to Sacagawea. I have all these deep rooted connections in life. But yet my claim to fame is sitting on my big fat ass in a computer chair, mocking these victims and their families, and still trying to find justice for a killer. And also, no one's ever guilty in a lot of these people's minds. You ever notice that? They're quick to side up one way or the other. I'm going to side with the family or I'm going to side with law enforcement. This person deserved to be guilty or this person deserved to be innocent. Missing kids cases seem to be the family's fault. Hell, I read earlier, I was watching a creator, or whatever they call themselves. They're already saying that it was the family's fault. And it really wasn't the guy that they caught in the barber shop. That somebody else did it. Already. Tell me about that. Already siding up, already getting their subs ready for their bullshit. And if you don't go with me, then you're against me. And if you don't go with me, you're against me. So therefore, you need to leave because we don't need your kind in here. Even though I say that your opinion is open. Yeah, get ready for it. It's coming. That guy's innocent. He didn't kill nobody. Oh, they did already, Walt. They already did. There's no evidence that he was there. You ever notice that's the biggest draw of people's? I've I've been in true crime for a while now, and I've seen it. The first thing they go for is always saying, "There's no evidence. There's nothing tying them to it." Look at what we're reading tonight. Look at what I've been reading. Look at the book that I read. There was plenty of evidence bleeding off those pages, and still people didn't want to believe it. They want to ask those questions. Well, the questions are right there in these documents. The answers are there. You can't force somebody to accept something that they don't want to see. Obviously so, JB. Hell, I was in the state while this was going on. But I could say that, anything. I was in the state. I could have said, well, I was around there and I saw the ambulances, I saw the cops, I saw everything. You you think people would y'all believe me? Would y'all believe me? Can y'all hold on a second? I'm gonna do intermission right quick. I'm gonna go check on my food that has been sitting in the oven. I'll be right back. Let me leave you with a song while I I am gone. Let's go back to the beach. Oh yeah. Yeah, buddy. Y'all like your meatloaf with ketchup, a little kind of glistened on top? Because this is perfect. See what happens when you follow instructions, not just in life, but you follow instructions when you cook. You get a better product than if you want to do it yourself. And you say, I know a better way. Then it turns out, and people are like, this is the worst meatloaf I've ever tasted. No, that meatloaf goes hard, and I am proud to say I cooked that bad boy. Yeah, I mean, ketchup on top of it makes it just a little better, doesn't it? But I'm not trying to talk about food every time I get on here because otherwise, I'd be calling myself a fat ass after a while. You know what I mean? Oh, people might think I'm a fat ass or whatever they call me, anyways. But regardless, I love to eat. You know why? Because when my ass was broke, I only fantasized about all these good meals that I'd be eating. And I want to share something else with you guys. You know that degree that doesn't mean anything? That piece of paper that doesn't mean anything? Well, your boy is getting a raise a substantial raise because I have this piece of paper now. Where I was over here, now your boy is over here. So, for all those people that say that that education and that paper doesn't mean anything, you really have to ask yourself, what makes you what makes you think that or say that? Because your boy just got a raise, and that piece of paper means a lot to people. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. So let's continue on. Man, if I showed you that meatloaf on camera, y'all'd be drooling. Let me turn on some. I'll be right back. I'm going to turn on some AC in here. I'm going to share a story with you before I continue reading because we know what's on these papers, right? I'm way behind. I'm way behind. Let me share this story with you. There's two farmers. They were, they were in a drought. And if you've ever lived where, ranching or farming or whatever is, the necessity is needing rain, you would understand this parable. These two farmers were sitting by this fence every morning drinking coffee, talking about, well, it doesn't look like it's going to rain today, sit there and go round and round talking negative about the lack of rain and, all the stuff that is causing them, right? So, one day, one of the farmers says, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm going to go do something different. The other one said, all right, I'll be here. It's not going to rain. Okay. So the other farmer goes out. He starts tilling up his field. He starts pulling weeds, doing all the farmer stuff. He's getting prepared, getting his machinery ready, all this stuff. While the other guy's sitting there talking to another guy on the phone, talking negatively about this individual. Why? Because he broke off his negative connection. And now he needs somebody else to pacify it. So this other farmer who is tilling up the fields and, fixing the machinery, then out of the blue one day, some storm clouds come around and it starts to rain. And it rains and it rains and it rains. The other farmer had already put in the seeds and everything needed to have his crop ready when the rain came. While the other farmer, who was doing nothing the whole time but chastising the efforts of this other farmer, was scurrying around trying to till up his land, plant the seeds and everything. And at the end, the farmer that quit wallowing in sorrow, did something about it, ended up with a crop that year. The other farmer who just sat there and talked shit ended up with nothing. And he lost his farm. So the moral of the story is you can either be a leader or you can be a follower. You can listen to people and go down with them, or you can stand alone and make your own decisions and start doing what you know is right. So, I hope you enjoyed that parable. Let me know what you think about it. What do y'all think about that? Was that pretty good or not? It's supposed to rain here tonight. This is from Officer Hathaway. On 11/14/2022, at about 22:44 hours, dispatch advised they were forwarding a call to my cell phone. My phone briefly started to ring. but then it suddenly stopped. For some reason, the call was forwarded to voicemail before I could answer. When the voicemail came through to my phone, I learned it was from blank redacted. The voicemail said, "Hey, how's it going? My name is redacted. My phone number is blank, 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 blank. I just wanted to make a statement to you guys because I was close friends with Maddie Mogan. I was with her at the corner club most of the night, and then after we left, we wanted to go to John's Alley, and stopped at the grub truck. They got grub truck, then the car picked them up, and they left and went home. I just wanted to make a statement about unintelligent, unable to be understood. I don't know if anything is helpful, but I just was just with them like for a little bit. So if I can be of any help, I would like to. Give me a call. Thank you." So we know who this individual was. So it looked like they were going to go somewhere else after the grub truck, and the girl decided not to, you know? Shortly after I got the voicemail, Redacted called dispatch again and was successfully transferred to my phone. At about 22:46 hours, I talked to Redacted on the phone. Redacted essentially said the same thing he said in the voicemail he left. Redacted said he was out with Maddie at the corner club until about 2:30. Redacted said several times he did not know who the other girl was that was with them that night. Redacted described the girls getting into a silver sedan after they got food at the grub truck. I confirmed Redacted name, date of birth, address, and phone number. Also confirmed with Redacted he drove to his parents' house at Redacted in Boise. I asked Redacted how long he planned to be at his parents' house, and he said he was skipping the next week of classes and would remain in Boise until after the Thanksgiving break. Redacted said he was willing to talk to a detective about his involvement with this case. Redacted said he does not have a roommate at his Queen Road apartment and that he lives alone. I recorded our conversation with my dash camera and BWC. The videos were uploaded to the WatchGuard server. I attached the audio file of the voicemail Redacted left me to this case through Spillman. And at the end, they signed clarification that they did indeed tell the truth. So one thing that I want to tell you guys is you don't have to believe that these officers stated the truth just because I do. There's individuals that don't believe in anything law enforcement says or does. So even if they do tell the truth, they're still not going to believe it. I believe in recourse of someone not doing their job efficiently. Kind of like they stated in the court hearings, there's a difference between being prejudiced toward doing something wrong and doing something wrong not intentionally and understanding that you made a mistake. So therefore, if if I hate saying that, Cash, but I don't want to dox the names, even though I might know them, you might know them, you know. But there's recourse for every action, and the fact that a lot of individuals don't believe in recourse of you breaking the law. Do you honestly believe that this case would have gotten as far as it did if there were Brady violations that were confounded? And by that, I mean if they were verified and they were deemed relevant, those individuals' testimonies and all this paperwork would have never made it into the trial. But we didn't see any of that. It seems like since the prosecution's witnesses didn't have any kind of recourse, people are angry because the person that went to prison on his own reconnaissance pleaded guilty. He had to pay the price. So what did you want the officers to get arrested and pay the price? For what? You wanted innocent people that were at the residence that were doing nothing but trying to survive and explain what was going on to pay the price? For what? You wanted anybody and everybody in that town to be a potential suspect or anything that's involved with Idaho to be potentially linking to this crime? For what? What is your payoff? Because you know that if you go down that avenue, there's never going to be a completion to your theory. And thus, there's never going to be an end. And you'll be able to continue to milk this cow for as long as you can because you know it and I know it. You don't know any other cases as well as you believe that you know this one. It's just sad. It really is. But you've never heard me to say that this is my career, that this is my job. I might take somebody seriously if they had over 100,000 followers, possibly 1,000,000, like Annie Elise. When she speaks, I take her serious because she's put in the groundwork. Even Anjanette Levy, Jennifer Coffindaffer, Gary Bricado, Chris McDonough, all these people that y'all don't like. You might not like them, but they put in the years behind to be able to speak on their knowledge of the field. And to blast them as if they're idiots and you're sitting in front of your TV looking like you haven't bathed in a week. And you openly say that you don't ever get out of the house or that you have all these phobias so that you must keep your kids indoors. And people listen to that. They listen to you as the voice of reason. You know? But nothing I say tonight's going to make a change. You may agree with it in the chat, but there's countless lurkers right now where word is spreading that I'm talking shit. And therefore, it's either going to piss people off or they're going to come and retaliate back, thinking that they really have something relevant to say about me. Because the fact of the matter is, if you don't have a degree, anything you say to me about having one, it's just plain jealousy. If you attack me for being educated, if you attack me for being a therapist that is licensed by the state of Texas, if you attack me for being in the job that I do or the commentary that I give, and you sit at home all day on these video cameras and talk nonsense and fairy tales and just try to discredit individuals who actually are on the front line doing what we do, that should say everything there is about you. You can name call, you can bash looks, you can bash families, you can bash everything you want. But the fact of the matter is, just like Olivia told Brian, "You're a joke. You're as irrelevant as Brian is because you screamed the loudest. You think that you're getting away with something that you're really not. Everybody sees it. And some of these creators have pedophile vibes. I'm going to say it. They do. They have petty vibes. You can hear it in their voices. You can hear the excitement, their voice change as they present these cases when it comes to little kids. You notice how they build up the little kids and they tear down the adults? Why is it? Because the little kids are more to your liking than the adults? Because maybe you weren't ever included just like Brian? Maybe you really do have more of an understanding of him than you even realize. So therefore, you must take up for something that you believe has been done to you. You know, the fact that you could never be with any of these or three women is relative. They would have laughed at your old ass and kept on trucking, living their best life, and countless others. But the simple fact that you focus on little kids and you comment on how beautifully made up they are and how this and that and the other, I don't know how other people feel about it, but that just kind of makes me feel it makes me feel sick. Like, how can people not see these petty vibes behind this person? You get what I'm saying? But who am I? I'm just a person on here that does this for a hobby. At this point, as many mods have attacked me before and said, "You're monetized, so what makes you any better? You're a grifter." Well, guess what, you sea hags? I'm not monetized right now, and I'm not making any money off this whatsoever. And most of my shorts get way in the thousands of views. Not making a dime off that. None of these lives, not making a dime off of it. I'm not begging for money. I'm not begging for anything. It's a hobby, like I said. I'm not an investigator, but I am able to look outside the box and ask those relative questions that do deserve to be answered. And the fact that I don't go to attack personal people in these documents to try to find my own answers by discrediting their profession. How many years have you done an open investigation off the couch? How many times have you went into a crime scene actually as a law officer and done open investigations off the couch? And these women too, these fact checkers that I used to have in my chat, everything I said, they had to back it up with a fact, throw out there on the screen. I've made some mistakes. And they'd always have to show me that I was wrong, that this is actually what the document said or this is what that said. While they're sitting at home, holed up in a place that they never leave because they're scared of society. And these are the people that you listen to, the experts that you listen to, that you put up on a pedestal. You know what I'm saying? So if I've called ambivalence in you tonight and you've unsubscribed, let me see if I have any unsubscribers. Oh hell yeah! The people that are staying are here for the right reasons, and that's awesome. Because I don't want you to be here in any kind of pretense that I'm just like everybody else, because I'm not. And I've just shared with you reasons why. And if you think having to be like one of those people is entertainment to you, stay in those chats. But we welcome you over here because there's going to be more cases than this. There's going to be more deep diving than this case ever thought of. And I'm not sorry, Glitter. I'm really not, because people are who they are. People choose to follow who they follow. But I think I'm going to go eat that meatloaf before it gets too damn cold. You'll just have to wait a little longer to go through these documents with me. And no, that's not part of my grift. I'm hungry. Wouldn't you love to have some meatloaf right now? With some vegetables? And yeah, I eat off paper plates because I hate to do dishes. You know what I mean? Maybe I will put some ketchup on it. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll put some mustard instead. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll put some barbecue sauce on my meatloaf. Maybe I won't. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Hopefully see you later on this weekend. And if not, be awesome as you are. Because you know why you're here. And you know why you love true crime. The real stuff. Not the fictional true crime that's out there. One thing I am glad of, though, that we're all adults in this chat. That I don't have to hide anything from you or even protect you from anything that I say or do. Because you're grown up enough to take it. And therefore, you know I'm not hiding anything. So if people hide stuff from their chats, what else are they hiding in their lives? What else are they lying about? Food for thought. Maestro? Cue that music.
Ready, set, go! Age Investigative, the best true crime channel out there.
I'm a true crime channel.
12 Gauge Investigators is the best.
12 Gauge Investigators, the best.
12 Gauge Investigator, he's the best.
Prince George's County 911 Center. What is the location of the emergency?
Across 4709 40th Avenue.
You say
it's a fire, and it's catching fast.
4709?
Yeah, 4709.
Okay, what city is that, ma'am?
Hyattsville, sorry.
And what's your name?
Take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets reload and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. James rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. To see murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flesh.
12 Gauge Investigator is the best.
When you're in Foley, come get your hair cut where 12 gets his at Nick's Barbershop. 12 Gauge is the best. We love you.
12 Gauge Investigative is the best.